Welcome everyone to episode 421. This is Blind Magic in Alice Springs, and I'm Murray Stewart, your host, and it's absolutely my delight today to once again introduce the Honourable Robyn Lambley, the member for Araluen here in Alice Springs, the independent member, shall I say.
Thank you for having me, Murray.
Yeah, g'day, and good news, we've clicked over to the 16,000 downloads. It's wonderful.
You're obviously hitting a spot with people, resonating with people,
yeah,
Murray, which is great.
Well, particularly in Sweden and Britain, they're beginning to join us in those countries, which is delightful. I have to brush up on my Swedish.
Do you think it's because of the blind aspect or just because of the personality that you are, Murray Stewart?
I'll let others be the judge of that, I reckon.
Or both.
Robyn, I'll tell you.
Yeah. You're pretty... your story is incredible.
Thank you. I'll tell you, Robyn, I've given up the grog and I'm feeling terrible.
Well, there's one solution to that, Murray.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I'm going to recommend that, but what I will say is I'm waiting to feel good.
Is this forever or temporarily?
Oh, look, it's
Never
just one of those things where I thought, you know what, maybe it was time to feel really, really, really good, but I'm waiting for that to happen because at the moment I'm not feeling that at all.
Well, I think it's overrated giving up the alcohol. I haven't had a drink for a month and I don't feel particularly great or better than normal either. So there you go, Murray. Maybe it's an indictment of our age.
You know, I have never actually drunk to get drunk. I've never gone about my business that way. It was always just a means of relaxing at the end of a hard day or a hard week. That's all it's been for me. But yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not feeling all that crash hot at the moment. But we plough on. How are things going up on the wedding cake there in Darwin for our town, Alice?
Well, we haven't had sittings for about 5 weeks now, Murray. So it's been a long break, and we're heading back to Parliament next Tuesday for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it seems to have been a little bit of a sleepy hollow. I haven't heard much on the news, etc., etc. So things have been a little quiet. But what are you diving into? What are you going to be sinking your teeth into on behalf of us here in Alice Springs?
Well, in the first week of the sittings next week, I will be moving a motion that basically censures the government for not delivering for Alice Springs. They've made a lot of promises over the last 7 years, and as you know, Murray, they have delivered very, very little. And there's 100%. A whole list of things that just haven't been delivered for Alice Springs. I'll be drawing that to the Parliament's attention, and hopefully my Alice Springs colleagues in Parliament can get on board and with their list of things. It's been a period since under this Labor government we have seen Alice Springs in Central Australia being neglected, and there's proof of that.
Seems to be the way with Labor governments right throughout Australia. They sort of shrink themselves back into a 5 kilometre radius of the CBD in all of their jurisdictional areas, and the regions are completely forgotten.
That's exactly what's happened under this Labor government. We've seen government centralised back to Darwin, even to the point of we had a really strong health system in place for many years. They took away a health and hospital board here in Alice Springs, and they've centralised complete control back to Darwin, with the local voice having really been diminished to nothing, Murray. So this is what this government has done. It's convenient for them. There are more votes for them in Darwin, and the rest of us, as you say, in the regions have suffered.
And also I'm noticing that our Mayor, Matt Patterson, has been given the flick from the committee which was supposed to look after issues concerning law and order and crime here, and that worries me. It seems to be going back to the bad old days of Henderson and Martin, remember, where O was answered in Darwin and we had no one to call on here in Alice Springs.
That's right, Murray. So the Mayor of Alice Springs was appointed as the chair of the Social Order Response Team a year ago.
Yes.
You would remember that.
I do.
And he was recently interviewed on ABC Radio Alice Springs saying that he has, that position's been taken away from him, and control for that
in
part
Casuarina in Darwin.
Has
Incredibly.
been centralised back to Darwin. So another example of the local voice being diminished.
So I know that you're going to stand strong on that, and so you should, Robyn. I just can't understand how they think that that's okay.
I don't think they care, Murray. I think it's most of their decisions, and particularly from this point on up until the next election in August of 2024, we will see every decision basically politically motivated. And I think probably even up until now that's been the case. But leading up to an election, that becomes more and more obvious. It's all about the votes. And whilst there's no Labor held seats in Alice Springs, we've always remained at the bottom of their priority list, and they would know that it's highly unlikely that they will win a seat in Alice Springs.
It appears that they've just simply done the numbers, that they don't have to do anything down here to win.
That's right. Whilst they've pretty much got every seat in Darwin. Well, they have got every seat in Darwin. The only seats held by the CLP in north of the Berrima line or north of Adelaide River are 2 seats in Palmerston and a seat at Nelson in the rural area. All the other seats that they hold are outside of Darwin. So they've got a big, the CLP have a big workload, big mission in front of them if they're realistically going to form government in August of next year.
This effectively is a gerrymander that used to be complained about big time in Queensland, if you remember, under the Bjelke-Petersen era. What can we do about this to get fairness for Alice Springs?
Well, you could say it's a gerrymander, but it's also about the CLP losing favour in Darwin, and that happened back in 2016 when the CLP government lost power under very controversial circumstances, and we won't go there, Murray.
Yes, we won't.
but basically the CLP imploded and disappointed people across the territory, but particularly people in Darwin. So the Labor Party has been very successful, very clever in harnessing that misery and disappointment with the CLP, and they have held all the Darwin seats pretty much for the last 7.5 years or 7 and a bit years, and are likely to retain most of those seats after the next election because the CLP don't seem to have won their hearts and minds.
But if I look at the constituent base in Darwin, there is a strong business community, particularly the Grigg business community in Darwin. Surely the CLP can tap into that area because the government appears to just want to please the public service. That seems to be their way of going about things in Darwin. But surely there's an opportunity for a business-orientated approach? Well,
I think that business in Darwin are used to dealing with this Labor government. The government has been very effective at distributing public money in a way which keeps people happy, just smatterings and sprinklings of government money to assist people with their endeavours within their businesses, and, you know, obviously in the non-government sector, that's a no-brainer. So I think what they've done very effectively is just keep people reasonably happy. The thing that will let them down, the Labor Northern Territory government, is the fact that crime is escalating out of control in Darwin like it has been in Central Australia for many years.
Yes, they've almost exported the problem, haven't they?
That might change people's minds when they go to the polling booths in August.
Talking of youth crime, it's a national issue. It's just terrible what's going on right throughout Australia, particularly in the regions. What on earth are we going to do about this, Robyn?
Well, it's being identified as a major issue now almost right across the country, isn't it? I mean, you turn on the TV and you hear of youth crime in Queensland, youth crime in Victoria, youth crime in northern Western Australia. It isn't unique to us in the Northern Territory, but I dare say that our level of youth crime is a cut above what people are experiencing in most other parts of Australia. Minimising it doesn't help, mind. I hear the government try and minimise it all the time. This isn't a problem peculiar to us, it's everywhere. What we need to do is reset, Murray. I think that without a change of government next year, we will get more of the same, and that is an attitude and policy settings that are permissive, that provide no consequences for behaviour of young people in particular. So we'll just get more of the same, which really says to me that crime will continue to get worse. There'll be a deterioration of law and order across the Northern Territory. Without a reset, without a change of government, whatever that is, I don't see that we've got much hope. And I think the only advice I can give people is to bunker down, keep yourself safe, change your behaviour, accept that this is the new reality, even though it's despicable and not acceptable. But
there seems to be a different mindset now. It used to be that there was honour even amongst thieves, but now everyone is a target, even the elderly people, the disabled, everyone seems to be a target now.
I think you're right, Murray. I think any sense of right and wrong has just gone out the window. There's no respect for anyone in the community. And I think that's been a long process. I'm still one to get on a bus when I go interstate and be horrified that older people are standing up and younger people are still sitting in the seats. I mean, that just horrifies me. My mother would have clipped us, around the ears for that sort of behaviour. But this is the world we live in, where it's everyone's fair game, apparently.
So is that what we need to do, just turn back the clock to some of those wonderful family and Christian values that we're all brought up with in our day, Robyn, but it just seems to have absolutely deserted the education system, deserted every aspect of our society?
Well, Murray, I don't think we can turn back the clock. I think some of us would like that. I always laugh when these people call themselves progressives. And
so do I.
Because
absolutely.
I don't see that a lot of what they stand for is actually progressive. I see it as the opposite, in fact. But I think change is inevitable in society, and to some extent we have to go along with the latest thing that we all have to accept. When we were kids, young married couples living together was not acceptable. Sex before marriage was barely acceptable. Abortion was barely acceptable. So we've all come to terms with or formed an opinion on those things over time, and by and large, society accepts that those things are okay to some extent. But look, I don't think that's the answer. I think we have to draw a line in the sand, reset how we execute punishments and consequences for crime. But, living in Alice Springs, we know that those problems are just so overwhelming, aren't they, Murray?
They are.
And where do you start? I've been here for 30 years. How long have you been here?
24 years next year.
24 years, and things have got worse in terms of school attendance, in terms of disadvantaged people and poverty. I mean, look around our town camps in Alice Springs. They are in a worse state now than what they ever were 30 years ago. Why is that, Murray? Where is all this public money going? Where is all this government funding going? And why aren't services delivering and helping where they're supposed to be helping?
And as you know, there's been a big call for an audit rather than this referendum.
I think that's precisely what we need. And in fact, if the referendum is unsuccessful on the weekend, I would hope that that's what the Prime Minister and the leaders of our country come out and say, okay, well, if we're not changing the Constitution, let's look at where all this money is going and what's actually being delivered on the ground.
And just on that, I'm really concerned about the ugly, ugly division that this referendum seems to have unearthed right across Australia. Some of the ugliness of the debate has been very unsettling for me. I know some people that have come from South Africa, and they fled South Africa because of this very racial ugliness, and it just seems to have unearthed a portion of Australia that I thought was dead and buried. On both sides of the fence. I'm not just...
Yeah, I agree, Murray. It's been a disaster. I agree with you. I think it really has done a lot of damage. If after the referendum some good things come of it, then that will be a blessing. But it has been a disaster. I think it's been poorly executed. I don't think the way in which the whole process started, there was so much uncertainty, there was no clarity around exactly what it was about, and it's led us to a point where basically people are in conflict over race, essentially.
Well, Lydia Thorpe, who is now on the no side, I thought the rantings the other day almost seemed to suggest a declaration of war, an actual war between black and white in this country. That to me is very, very disturbing.
Well, it's something that you wouldn't have expected to see in 2023. I think we were making small inroads into uniting people, bringing Aboriginal people into mainstream, if you like. I know in Alice Springs the middle class, Aboriginal middle class, has grown significantly over the last 30 years, and that's probably one of the most positive changes that I've witnessed, is that you've got Aboriginal people that are engaged in their own businesses and, tradies. You've got people just living a normal sort of middle class life like most of us enjoy in Alice Springs. That has been a positive, but there's still a long way to go. And I don't know what Sunday looks like, Murray, the day after the referendum, but I look forward to something a bit more positive.
I think it's incumbent upon both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader to act like real leaders after this, so we can just move on from what has been a very unsettling period in our history.
Yes, I agree. It just remains to be seen what that looks like. I dread to think about the effect a no outcome will be on Aboriginal people. I think that's sad, that if the no campaign gets up, how does that make Aboriginal people feel? And I think some responsibility has to be taken for that by the Prime Minister, really. I mean, they have to be prepared for picking up the pieces if the no campaign gets up.
And the people who are driving the yes campaign appear to be stirring up trouble within their own, on that side of the fence, if I can put it that way. And it's incumbent upon them, I think, to make sure that if the no vote does get up, that we don't have unsettlement on our streets, etc., because I'm very, very concerned about what this may bring.
Yes, I think we all are, particularly in Alice Springs.
Absolutely.
30% of our population are Aboriginal people, and for all those people, or most of those people, to be feeling heartbroken, angry, confused, even more than they already are, is potentially a big problem for all of us. It's a bit scary, isn't it?
Let me turn the clock back to a life which we both shared to an extent, Robyn, and that was when you were the Minister for Health and you had disability under your ambit, and the Royal Commission for People with Disabilities and Neglect and Abuse of People with Disabilities was brought down the other day, and one of the proposals was to move toward a model where segregation was no longer and integration is to be. Now, I'm personally very excited about that. You probably know that myself and my brother were the first children to be integrated into mainstream education in New South Wales, and by gee, was that a battle. And integration is the key. It's the key for everybody, not just people with disabilities, but it's the key for everybody. And maybe us all getting along, but to have people with disabilities integrated into the mainstream community is absolute an answer. So I've got no doubt that the special schools, however, are going to fight like hell to maintain their existence.
Murray, this isn't something I'm set on in terms of a position, but I just wonder, will there always be a place for a special school for some children that just really can't cope in a mainstream school or just a general school?
I think it's like anything.
I don't know.
I think it's like anything. When you transition into a new environmental sort of context, there needs to be the support.
Yes.
So, for example, there needs to be a lot of work done around anti-bullying and making sure that children are integrated into an environment where they're not going to be bullied, but also, and that's a whole of school education process, I believe, but also making sure that the children who are integrated still can receive some specialist service. But I think to belong to your country and with your peers is so important for your growth. It's one of the most special days in my whole life when I was integrated into what was the Wallsend High School in New South Wales. It remains etched in my mind forever as to how important that was for me, for my personal growth.
Murray, I can't imagine you not being integrated into the broader community. That just seems absurd to me. But I guess I'm thinking of children that have profound intellectual disabilities. I mean, as a mother, I would be concerned about their safety and their well-being,
absolutely.
and just keeping them in a school that ensures that. I guess, as you're saying, it's a process of schools learning how to look after everyone and with whatever needs they have. But
I'd love to keep in touch with you about this, because I believe that the territory and state governments should hand down their position by, I think, March of next year, so as a position can be formed nationally. So I'll keep in touch with you about this, Robyn, because it is a subject dear to my heart, obviously.
Yeah.
But there does need to be a balanced transitional approach to make sure that these kids
I think
are not
a lot
left.
of things, Murray, if you're not engaged in or involved in that, then you don't really know. And I certainly
Of course.
don't have an opinion either way. I just my main concern would be the safety and well-being of the children, and if that can be addressed over time.
Well, I can tell you that both myself and my brother were bullied for probably 5 or 6 years constantly, but that sort of toughened us up, to be frank, and to a large extent it formed who we are today. And I'm not in any way supporting bullying. Bullying is a cowardly act, but it's certainly, because we took probably a different attitude to it that you would take these days, it's certainly shaped us as human beings, there's no doubt.
But a lot of children with disabilities would be less equipped to deal with bullying.
Absolutely.
And that's probably an issue.
And I would hate to see my daughter, who has Downs, I'd hate to see her bullied in the fashion we were. She wouldn't cope, and it would be disastrous. And this is why I say that it needs to be done in a common sense fashion with all of the safeguards attached to it. If you like, a whole of school approach, and the potential bullies need to be educated straight up.
Yes, absolutely. It's a changing world, Murray.
It is. It is. Look, I'm going to let you go, but I wish you all the best with returning back to Parliament and all that's ahead of you. It's a big job, Robyn. It's a big job.
It's a huge job, Murray. And I wish you all the best too. I know you've been struggling with health problems, and I know that you'll get on top of them, Murray.
Yeah.
I do think of you.
Thank you. We look forward to having more chats with you, because last time we had a talk, we received a lot of downloads. It was wonderful. So I've got no doubt that this will happen again. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Murray.
This has been episode 421, and it's been my absolute pleasure to have the Honourable Robyn Lambley here with me. And this is a Blind Magic Communications production.